Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we've been working on our quad-com sat here. I've gone through and cleaned it up a little bit. I've rerouted it to be back up over this way, and I've cleaned up our spacing here. But I do feel like we have a significant issue, and that issue is this. So this second stage is really weak, and I feel like it should probably also have some solar panels on it. So let's go ahead and detach here, and let's take this second stage entirely off. So what I want to do is I want to actually have this be up here, and this be the second stage. So this is going to be additional fuel for sure, and we'll have this be a poodle down here. So this adapter is definitely a little awkward, but we could use an engine plate for this, I suppose, couldn't we? Yeah, we could. I'm strongly considering using an engine plate here. So, right, that's fine. Let's get rid of all of that for now. Let's go to an engine plate. So that's going to be an EP25. So we're going to have this be on quad nodes. And I want it flipped around like this, and we'll do that. Now, I want to duplicate from here up. So we need to reroute this, and that'll be right here. There we go. Duplicate from here, and this will need to be rotated like that. There we go. Rotate this one like this, and rotate this one like that. Approximately. So it looks like we have a little bit worse of clipping here. We may need to go up to... This is already an EP25. I'm wondering about changing our attach nodes to be 8x1. That might allow us to move this out a little bit further. We wouldn't use these other nodes, so it would just be positioning it like that. That definitely allows us to move that out a little further. That's much better on the clipping. Okay, I like that. So that's good, and then at this point, I want to have this be something like a Rockamax X232. And then that is going to be a, not a corgi, we want a poodle for this. Poodle. Am I blind? Yes, I am blind. Where is the poodle? Here it is. Okay, excellent. So something along the lines of that. So at this point, we can see that this over Kerbin is much better. This is about 3,000 DV for this compared to about 800. So that is a huge improvement. Now we're going to put in a TD25 decoupler here. So that'll be this guy. And then we're going to want to have, honestly, probably another fuel tank here. So like this, and then like that. So this is going to be more mass, and the question is, what has that done to our thrust to weight ratio? So this is now 1.28, so we should absolutely turn up the thrust on our thumpers at this moment. I'm also noticing that this external fuel duct appears to have been broken. So we should definitely let that fuel flow through like that, and that'll be reasonably fine. So as we ascend here, after stage 3 is 1.76, but this is actually going to be down here, right? And then stage 2 is currently broken, so that's going to be something like this. This guy would go here. This is the engine plate, and that would theoretically never be actuated. We would do this all manually. So I do want to put some solar panels on here because our solar panels are going to be kind of problematic if we try to deploy them in this configuration. We want to deploy them after we separate these out. So that'll be fine. We'll put some solar panels right down here, and then I think we're pretty much ready to go on this. I'm just going to go with a pair of 1x5s here. So it'll be something along the lines of that. That should be absolutely a-okay. So at this point, I think we're pretty much ready to go. Let's make these be nice and gray and orange. There we go. It looks kind of awkward with the thumper, but, you know, it'll be fine. So now the question is, once we have this gone, should we still have this vector, or should this be upgraded to a mainsail? The vector is technically slightly more efficient. Let's give it a go with the vector. The only issue that I'm tracking at this moment And the only reason for this being a simulated launch is I don't know what our thrust to weight is going to be with that vector once we have separation from the SRBs. That's the only concern at this point. So let's go ahead and do a simulated launch here just to determine that, and that may graduate up to a regular launch if that's good. Struts up here. This is an issue. Okay, so yeah, that makes absolute sense that that would be an issue. We need to run a strut from here, and this should be in quad symmetry if it can be. No, we're gonna have to do these separately. Okay, so one here to here, one here to here, and then one out over here, and then one out over here. Okay, something like that. That should be fine. That should, in theory, hold us together nicely. Are we concerned about this joint? Probably not. Let's see if it'll let us do a strut from here to here. Kind of. It kind of allowed us to do that. Sure. That'll do. So that looks okay. That should fix that problem. Again, the major issue that we're tracking at this point is the thrust to weight after our SRBs disengage. So let's just go straight up for right now, and we'll see how that goes. I'm expecting to need to go straight up and then start the gravity turn after the SRBs detach. We have slightly lower thrust to weight, and we also have a bit of an issue potentially with blowback. So let's see how that goes. So put this in surface up, throttle up, and off we go with a simulated launch. This vector is very, very good at gimbaling. There's no doubt about that. And checking in on our thrust to weight right now, it's definitely on the lower side, now that we've added a fair amount of additional fuel up here. This is more fuel for the vector, and we're not actually pulling any fuel from the center core yet, but this is more fuel for the vector and a lot more fuel for our interplanetary transfer stage. So that's going to be good. I think at this point, assuming our vector has good thrust to weight, we should be good here. Okay. SRB detachment, 1.24. It's not phenomenal thrust to weight, but it'll do. We should at this point be moving our way over to orbital prograde, which is oddly down, but that's just because of what we have selected here. So that'll be fine. I want to check in on our apoapsis. Ooh, that's not great. We're going to hold attitude here. Okay. We need to bring that apoapsis right on up. Holding at T-minus 27 to apoapsis. So that's absolutely noted. This thrust to weight is a little on the low side. Absolutely. I'm going to try to go to orbit here. I think we can make it. But it is going to be a wee bit spicy. So we're just punching right on up through the atmosphere at this moment. T-minus 34 seconds. Once we reach an apoapsis of 40 kilometers, I'm going to go back to prograde. I'm just going to hold here for now. I'm keeping an eye on our relative speed compared to how much DV we have in this stage. I wish we had more. It's going to be a little tight. Okay, let's move this over to prograde. Cool. This is definitely over gimbaled. I'm going to gimbal limit that down to about 10% for right now. I think this would probably be a lot better if this was a mainsail. It's just a little underpowered. I think there's no real way around that. So there's a couple things we can do here. Yeah, look at this, 1,700 meters per second. We're pretty short of orbital velocity. So let's pull this back, and that is absolutely the issue that I thought it was going to be. So we're going to pull that back, and I want to redesign our side boosters just in full. We're going to completely remove these, and we're going to go for larger pollexes. So those are going to go in over here, and you can see those are very large. I'm going to get rid of these decouplers, and we're going to have those be the larger decouplers. I'm going to have these be attached right about here or so. This is obviously not the correct angling. We need to change the angling because of the fins there. So we're going to have this go about here. And I want to move these down. Yeah, right about here will be fine. So at this point, we can see that our thrust to weight with this is 1.94. That's a little much, but I also want to ditch the Vector here. The Vector is definitely the more efficient engine, but I think the mainsail is the right call here. So we're going to go for the mainsail. That looks about right. That'll be okay. And then we, of course, need to think about our thrust to weight here. 2.08 off the pad is a lot. So let's turn the thrust limiter of this down to about 2/3. 1.55. Actually, 3/4. 1.68. There we go. Now we've got a little bit of leeway here. And what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of fuel up here. This is going to be in the FL size. So this is going to be up over like this guy. That's a fair amount of fuel. How's that going to last? And what does that do to our thrust to weight? I want to have this fuel be right down over here, connecting like that. So what's that timing look like? The thrust to weight is 1.45, so we can bring this back up to 1.8, huh? What's 85% look like? 1.59, that's about perfect. Okay, now the question is one of timing. We should have the thrust to weight, no doubt about that. The question is, what burns out first? This Pollux or these 4 fuel tanks feeding this one mainsail? I have a feeling it's going to be the SRBs. And we know that that's a bit of an issue because we're going to be carrying extra weight if that's the case. So we could downsize our amount of fuel there and throttle down the SRBs. Those are both ways that we can adjust that. So we can fine-tune that a little bit. That's the main question right now. At this point, I think that assuming everything is balanced out correctly, we should be fine to launch this at long last. So let's pin this open and pin this open. We're going to keep an eye on the relative fuel levels. So we're going to put this in surface up. This is a simulated launch, and off we go. Okay, struts are kind of necessary. But this told us what we need to know. So it's all good. We'll pull this back. We now know that the fuel will burn out before the SRB does. That's ideal. So that's good. All we need to do then is strut this together. So I'm going to put in a strut connector right here. And I'm going to put in a strut connector right here. But this should be in quad symmetry. There we go. And a strut right up over here. Cool. That should solve the problem entirely. This should go to orbit. I'm comfortable with doing an unsimulated launch here. This is absolutely going to work perfectly at this point. I'm very confident in that. So let's go ahead and get this thing launched. That'll be perfect. This is going to be a lot of extra DV, no doubt about it. We're just using the extra thrust to weight from the Polluxes to carry more fuel for the mainsail. That's what's happening here. So this is absolutely great. Once again, I'm going to pin these open just to keep an eye on the fuel levels, but it should run out of liquid fuel before it runs out of solid fuel based on the trend we were seeing there. This is an unsimulated launch. Let's go. We're going to go straight up here for a while. And we're going to have quite a lot of speed. So let's keep an eye on this at, I think, 25 kilometers or so. I'm going to start doing an orbital prograde turn. And yes, this is a little bit awkward in its orientation. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so we're definitely seeing the fuel flow in correctly. Apoapsis of 5 kilometers at this time. Thrust to weight is going up quite a lot. Now the only actual concern at this point is, do we have too much thrust to weight? And I kind of think we do. I'm throttling down a little bit, but that's going to adjust our fuel burn rate. Okay. Let's take it over to orbital prograde at this time. It looks reasonable. I think we have enough vertical speed to do this. So we're sitting at orbital prograde. The only concern now is blowback from the SRBs. Let's see how the staging goes. Actually, that's a lot of speed building up. That was interesting. Okay. So let's bring ourselves over to horizontal velocity up. I think we're okay. I definitely staged that a little early. And our rotation is a bit of a problem. Our apoapsis is quite high, though. Let's actually cut the engines here. So the SRBs there still had a little bit of liquid, or rather solid fuel left. We'd burned all the liquid fuel, but it still had a little bit of solid fuel left. Let's stop that rotation. There we go. And we just need to get ourselves a lot of horizontal speed. We have a lot of vertical here. That was a very... There we go. I had to click that like 4 times. That was a very awkward launch, to be sure, but I don't see any damage up here. There were explosions up here, but I don't think anything important was damaged. So it looks good. We do need a lot of horizontal speed at this moment. So this is going to be a prograde burn, and that's going to be, yeah, quite a lot. So we need to align to that node, and we need to do that fairly quickly, but we're heading over in that direction already, so that looks good. I think we're fine here, to be honest. Yeah, that was a very awkward ascent. We could do that ascent much better with the exact same rocket, but it'll do. Okay, so let's just get ourselves aligned here, and this is going to use up the majority of our fuel here to get ourselves into orbit, but we're still going to have about 500 meters per second here. A little over 500, like 540. That's not bad. I'm pretty content with that. So about 1 minute and 38 seconds away. Let's physics warp forward as we work on this turn. Our turning is going to be pretty slow right now, and that's absolutely a-okay. We're basically in orbit right now, but we need like a lot more horizontal speed. So 1 minute away. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. So it's pretty clear that we needed to take our... Oh, we're over gimbaled here. Let's just drop that down to about maybe like 20%, 21%, sure. It's pretty clear that we needed to go to orbital prograde earlier in that ascent. We got a lot of vertical speed, but it should work. This should be absolutely fine. We're going to start heading to Duna. Again, this launch was unsimulated, so it's fine. There were definitely a few mishaps, not entirely nominal, but we're okay. That ascent could definitely have some work done to it. No doubt about that. Well, let's just get ourselves into orbit here. We're very, very close to orbital velocity at this point. So that's all looking good. Okay, this is good enough. We're in a good enough orbit. So at this point, we want to just get out of the Kerbal system. So sometime around here-ish, probably. That'll do. And we can see we're getting a good chunk of that done with this fuel. That's great. Very happy to see that. So let's go ahead and turn this. It's going to be a very slow turn because we've still got a lot of mass back here. We'll be jettisoning that soon enough. And then we'll be onto this, which has almost 3 kilometers per second in it. That's a lot. That's good. And each of these have like 1,500 meters per second in them too. Even though the game doesn't know that. But it's absolutely true. So that'll be fine, and we are going to be ready for this burn here in about 2 minutes. We'll be escaping from Kerbin's gravity at that point. So 881 meters per second for this, 563 of that coming from our ascent stage. I like it. That's very good. So we are ready to launch this now. Or rather, not really launch, but begin the burn. So that's going to be the vast majority of this, and then the question is that Poodle going to be over-gimbaled? The answer is probably... most likely. Yeah, it's over-gimbaled. Let's bring that gimbal limit down to about 20%. That seems okay. Beautiful. We should turn much, much better now. And our thrust to weight isn't phenomenal here, but it'll definitely do the trick. So, of course, our next step is going to be to go to the ascending or descending node and match planes with Duna. But let's just finish up this burn first. 4, 3, 2, 1, and just about done. Let's get that last little bit of speed in here. We'd rather overshoot than undershoot in this situation because we're just trying to escape. So that'll be fine, and if we look at this, we can now see Duna's currently out over here. It doesn't really matter. We're past the descending node. Okay. So let's go ahead and warp on out to Kerbal Escape, which is going to be like out over here. And off we go. Excellent. Where's our rocket at? There it is. Goodbye, Kerbal. This is not coming back. It will be remaining here. So that's absolutely fine. We will be deploying these satellites once we get to Duna. I want them to deploy in this configuration. So all we're going to do is we're going to detach the struts here, and then we're going to jettison them once we get there. But that is not a thing for right now. So we're currently in orbit over the sun at this point. And we need to head over to the ascending node. 0.1 degrees is barely anything, though. So let's see if we have any sort of encounter over here. I wouldn't expect it. Actually, out over here is not terrible. We could dial that in a bit. Right about here or so. That's interesting. So I'm looking at the closest approach here. 71,000 kilometers. We can dial that in a bit by changing our inclination as well, maybe? Cool. So this is now giving us an encounter, and we can start to dial that in a bit. I want this to be probably a relatively minimal encounter, honestly. Well, not necessarily. We can always adjust internally. So this is definitely not quite what I want in terms of the inclination. That can also be adjusted internally, though. So this is probably okay right here. The planar orbit of Ike is basically equatorial, so we can just use that as a reference. That sounds good. Yeah, I think this is fine. What would it look like for a braking burn here? This is pretty high up, so this is going to be a bit of a braking burn, but that's not bad. That did not feel bad at all. Yeah, that 627 meters per second, that's plenty. So that sounds good. At this point, we'll align to that node, and we'll get there eventually. Our turning is definitely a little bit faster now, so that's nice. And yeah, this seems like an absolutely fine encounter to go for. We'll need to change our inclination, but I'm not concerned about that. We've got lots of delta V for this. So that all looks good. Let's go ahead and warp on forward. It's going to be a little bit until we get there, and it is about time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we'll put these guys into their proper orbits. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Aurelio, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge Jeskiel, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.